Hey there, I'm Cloud Q. Do you want to play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but you haven't played the first part of the remake trilogy? Or maybe it's just been a while since you played FF7 Remake? Then I've got you covered. This is a Final Fantasy VII Remake recap. Spoilers ahead, but I guess that's why you're here. Chapter 1. The Destruction of Mako Reactor 1. This story takes place in Midgar, a big city with big reactors, and a very pretty flower girl. But enough of that, let's get right into the story with a badass entrance. Meet Final Fantasy's poster boy and main character of this game, Cloud Strife. And without much hesitation, we start cutting down infantryman. He's joined by members of the peaceful economic protest group, Avalanche, Jesse, Biggs, Wedge, and Barrett. But Cloud seems to be not interested in them. While Cloud, Cold Fecker Strife, proceeds to be a meanie to everyone around him, we learn that he is an ex-soldier who used to work for Shinra, the company that he's now helping to attack. Eventually, Barrett Wallace, the leader of Avalanche and local gun arm man, joins our party, but not before holding a passionate speech about his motives for targeting the reactor, and Cloud telling him to go to therapy. So in order to save the planet, and to get paid, they press on together. Eventually, they reach the core of the reactor. When setting the peaceful protest bang device, Cloud, no ibuprofen Strife has his first set of weird headaches, but they proceed with the mission. After scrapping a giant scorpion robot thing and saving Jesse while showing off his cool main character jumping skills, it's time to escape. The chapter ends with the escape from the reactor. Chapter 2. Fateful Encounters. The next chapter starts off with another speech by Barrett justifying their actions, that Cloud, speech critic Strife seems utterly uninterested in, because a minute later all he cares to tell Barrett is, "Hey, I'd like my money now." After walking through the chaotic aftermath of the peaceful protest bang that you caused, and almost getting Adam smashed by a bridge, Cloud has a sort of hallucination flashback of his burning hometown, as well as the one and only Sephiroth. Like any good main character, Cloud follows him to investigate. But after Sephiroth brags about burning Cloud's hometown as well as his mother, and having the caucasity to ask Cloud to join him, he smashes his hallucination and moves on, blaming the whole thing on fumes from the Mako in the reactor. After that, one of the best songs from all of Final Fantasy starts playing, and Cloud climbs over some rooftops, only to meet the pride of all Midgar, some really cute flower peddler. She shoves a flower at his face, and after she randomly starts tweaking and grabs his arm, Cloud can suddenly see floating ropes around them. The things that Mako does to laundry. After being spotted by some troopers, Cloud, rooftop climber Strife makes his escape, eventually meeting up with the Avalanche crew by jumping on a train. Cloud really seems to enjoy the process of jumping around trains. On the train, Barrett harasses some random Shinra employees, while Jesse, the hot engineer of the team, shows Cloud some Midgar lore while flirting with him. She explains how Midgar is structured with 8 sectors and a plate 300 meters above ground level, with slums being on that ground level. The chapter ends with Barrett actually calmly explaining his motivations for once. Neat. Chapter 3. Home Sweet Slum. All of the crew arrive in the Sector 7 slums of the city to celebrate a mission accomplished. Cloud then also goes to meet up with his childhood friend and video game waifu #1, Tifa, at Tifa's bar 7th Heaven, which is also Avalanche's base of operations. After having another headache on the way and accidentally scaring Marlene, Barrett's daughter, Tifa wants to talk to Cloud. She hooks him up with a room to stay at, right next to hers, and Cloud turns in for the night. After a dispute with his neighbor, a black-robed guy, not flying laundry kind of rope by the way, who appears as Sephiroth but then doesn't, Cloud sleeps until the next morning. Cloud joins Tifa in 7th Heaven, where she explains that to pay him, she needs help collecting money from some of the customers who get water filters from the bar. Cloud, not a salesman Strife, is as excited as a cactar in a balloon store and energetically agrees to help Tifa out. After collecting most but not all of Cloud's payment, Cloud and Tifa venture out to do some side quests for the Neighborhood Watch, where Tifa first joins your party. Cloud displays extreme expertise in dealing with cats and ends up beating up a lot of monsters throughout the day. At one point, they save the red-haired dumbass Johnny from spilling Avalanche's identity. After Tifa keeps Cloud from murdering him, they continue with their side quest of beating the crap out of the local monster popularity. After doing all of the cute little side quests, you get a small optional scene as a reward. You get to change the water filter in your room. But of course, that's not it. You also get to converse with Tifa about the past and the future, as well as getting to help her choose what kind of dress she wants to buy. After this, the pair head to 7th Heaven again, where Tifa gets to make you a drink. Or you get to say no to it. But how could you do that to poor Tifa, you monster? In all my 11 playthroughs, I've never even chosen that. How dare you? After drinking Tifa's banger cocktails, you get to wait for the Avalanche crew to finish their meeting on the next mission. After playing darts and absolutely acing it because Cloud minigame master Strife doesn't miss, you finally get paid, but you are also told you're not needed for the next mission. Cloud leaves, beats up some shady fellers who were looking for Barret, and then heads for his room. There he encounters Jessie, who has a different mission for him. Chapter 4: Mad Dash. This chapter is basically mostly said mission by Jessie, kind of a side quest if you will, but not literally, because it's the main scenario. You drive up to the plate with bikes on train tracks because you're just a badass like that. And long story short, while Jessie flirts with you and you learn a lot about her and the other Avalanche members, you end up stealing a blasting agent from a Shinra facility. All goes mostly well, and they all arrive in the Sector 7 slums, mostly unharmed, with the exception of Wedge's butt. Along the mission, an important detail is Cloud remembering the promise he made to Tifa before leaving to join Shinra back in their hometown when they were little, which gives him resolve to help out Tifa with her whole situation. Chapter 5 and 6: Dogged Pursuit and Light the Way. After turning in for the night, Cloud wakes up to the floating laundry terrorizing the slums. That's what happens when you slack off on doing laundry. They fight through them until they push over Jessie and just run off afterwards. How unnecessarily rude. With Wedge's behind still being hurt and Jessie now injured too, Cloud is once again asked to join them for the next mission. In light of wanting to support Tifa, he agrees. Tifa, Barret and Cloud board the train towards their next target, Reactor 5. But with the mission turning into a bit of a train wreck, literally, they have to jump off the train and go an alternative route. What follows is a lot of fun little conversations, a bunch of running around, and a handful of monsters in our way. On the way they become pest control and turn off the big lights that simulate the sun for the slums. Not the brightest idea. But eventually they arrive at Reactor 5, and after reuniting with Biggs, who secured the route into the reactor, they enter it. Chapter 7: A Trap is Sprung. Despite a warning issued by Avalanche, their way into the reactor goes very smoothly, almost too smoothly. Like when you step on a banana peel because you can't imagine it actually being that slippy and then you fall on your face. And as the saying goes, never trust the smoothiness. It's a trap by Shinra. The President Shinra and Director of Public Safety Heidegger plan to frame Avalanche as allies of the nation Wutai in order to stir some international conflict and motivate the people of Midgard to be on board with it. However, they didn't realize how much ass the trio of Cloud, I Don't Dance Strife, Barret, Let's Think of Victory Poses Wallace, and Tifa, the only normal person here Lockhart, can kick. They proceed to maliciously sabotage the preparations for the giant robot that is supposed to beat them up on live TV. How could they do such a thing? After being even more out of line and scrapping the giant robot that they sabotaged, the robot explodes from anger and ends up knocking Cloud down towards the slums. He can slightly halt his fall with the grappling gun that they got from Biggs, but he still ends up crashing down towards the slums. Chapter 8: Budding Bodyguard. One near-death experience later, Cloud wakes up in a flower bed in a church. Here he meets that flower peddler again and learns that her name is Aerith. She promptly hires Cloud as her bodyguard after a bad guy, who I know way too many people would sim for, walks in and wants to take Aerith away. Her payment being 1 date. This is not a joke I made up, that's her payment.
Just do this for me, okay?
Fine, but it'll cost you. A lot.
A lot, huh? 1 date ought to do it.
Huh?
One boss fight and escape sequence later, the two escape with an assist from the floating laundry. I guess one of them has a good washing machine. The two now make their way through the slums and Cloud escorts Aerith to her home, meeting lots of Aerith's acquaintances along the way. One being someone who works at the Leaf House, an orphanage, and they are asking for a delivery of flowers, which after Cloud meets Aerith's mother, the pair decide to deliver. And by they decide, I mean Aerith decides. And Cloud goes along because he's such a sweetheart.
I'm not cut out for this crap.
They spend the rest of the day helping out the people in the slums, because they're cool like that. Before arriving back at Aerith's home, they fight a bald suit who probably watched a lot of wrestling growing up, the way he suplexes Cloud. He, as well as the red-haired man that Cloud brawled with at the church, are part of the Turks, which is basically a shady Shinra force for questionable activities. Illegal kind of questionable, not what you were thinking of. Before actually returning to Aerith's home, if you do all the side quests, you get a very cute scene, similar to the one with Tifa from Chapter 3. And Cloud surprisingly slightly opens up in that scene. It's actually very nicely done. The character development in this game is legit peak. When they actually arrive at Aerith's home, Aerith's mother suggests Cloud wait till the next day to return to Sector 7. Only to ask him to leave without Aerith during the night. Devious. After a tiny sneaking minigame that I never fail because I'm built like that, Cloud makes for Sector 7. On the way, guess who surprises him? Aerith. Why, do you ask? Well, she tells Cloud, because I'm not sick of you yet. Chapter 9. The Town That Never Sleeps. Aerith and Cloud now travel towards Sector 7 together, through a shortcut to avoid Wall Market, which is some lawless district of the slums where crime rules. Crime doesn't rule though. Don't do crime, kids. Unless it's against Shinra. Traversing a collapsed expressway, Cloud showcases his crane operator skills, and Aerith has to slowly teach Cloud how high fives work. The crane minigame is criticized a lot, but I've always found the character development between Cloud and Aerith to be such a great payoff that made it worth the slight annoyance the minigame could cause. After they arrive at a playground, Aerith wants to take a break for some bonding time. They talk some, but when Aerith tells him the name of her first love, Cloud gets one of his iconic headaches. Maybe he's just really scared of being friend-zoned and he's not sure how to interpret Aerith sharing this information. Right after that, when the two are saying their goodbyes, a chocobo wagon drives by, with no other than Tifa in it. Cloud runs up the back of the wagon to learn from Tifa that she is going to Wall Market to investigate Don Corneo by getting into his bridal audition. Cloud initially doesn't worry because he's seen Tifa's fists in action, but after Aerith insists on helping her, they make their way to help her. They eventually conclude that the best way to help Tifa is by getting Aerith into the audition. One suggestive hand massage, a tournament with prize money for a dress, and a fight against the house later, they get Aerith into the audition and into an awesome dress with the help of the hand masseuse. However, Cloud gets worried, being the protective bodyguard boy that he is. He doesn't want Aerith to go into the Dawn's mansion alone. Aerith agrees, but Aerith, being the smart girl she is, she made a plan already. Cloud will wear a dress and join them in the audition. I'll let this speak for itself.
Wait.
No can do, Cloud. This is our plan, and you'll learn to love it.
One dance performance later, Cloud, I Don't Dance Strife becomes a pretty princess. I guess we all want to be pretty princesses once in a while. They go to the audition, where Cloud delivers one of the funniest one-liners in the game, before actually being picked as Don Corneo's bride for the night. Before the romantic tension can rise from zero, Aerith and Tifa decide it's time for an intervention, so they beat up Corneo's men with one of the best fighting themes in the game playing. They then use friendly convincing techniques to make Corneo open up about why he was looking for Barret, They find out Shinra is planning to drop the Sector 7 plate on the slums. While in disbelief, they still decide to get back as quick as possible. However, not before getting dropped by Don Corneo. Not in combat. He has a trapdoor. Chapter 10. Rough Waters. This chapter begins with you waking up in the sewers after getting the original Corneo trapdoor experience. After waking up, you can pick which of the two companions you want to wake up first, which may have sparked a whole section of ex-users to make mortal enemies. After absolutely slapping Corneo's pet, they make for Sector 7 through the sewers. This section has some of the cutest Aerith and Tifa moments in the game. I sure hope no one ever pits these two against each other. They seem so sweet together. Nothing huge going on in this chapter story-wise, but there's a ton of cute little dialogues and interactions. Chapter 11. Haunted. While the party is still not sure about the reality of the Plate 7 plans, cutscenes have confirmed the plan at this point. Another part of Shinra's plot to stir international conflict by blaming the opposed nation of Wutai and Avalanche. Now above ground, the three head through the train graveyard, which is said to be haunted. Only that it actually is. I mean, the chapter title says so it's gotta be true. On their way through the train graveyard towards Sector 7, they actually managed to defeat the spirit that was capturing spirits around the train graveyard. We also get one of the most heartbreaking but also sweetest Aerith moments before the boss fight of this chapter. Yet again, it's almost creepy how well this game is portraying its characters. Get it? Creepy, because it's like a chapter about spirits and haunted stuff? Yeah, that's all I got here. Chapter 12. Fight for Survival. Finally arriving at Sector 7, the party realizes the situation is very real, as they can spot combat atop the Sector 7 support pillar. Yet, the party is again being delayed by the floating laundry, and I'm running out of laundry jokes. Eventually they can break through and get to the pillar. While Cloud and Tifa join the other Avalanche members on the pillar to fight for survival, Tifa asks Aerith to get Marlene, Barrett's daughter, to safety. Aerith and Wedge help organize some of the slum inhabitants to evacuate. Aerith faces some complications, but eventually gets to Marlene. However, Tsong, the leader of the Turks, gets to Aerith and Marlene too. The Turks being on site to actually separate the plate from the pillar. So Aerith has to make a deal, her freedom for Marlene's safety. Meanwhile, Cloud and Tifa have been fighting to get atop the pillar. On the way they come across Biggs as well as Jessie, who seemingly both succumbed to their wounds from fighting on the pillar. At this point the atmosphere is so sad and intense that I can barely think of good jokes. Eventually they get to the top where they reunite with Barrett and fight the bald wrestling Turk as well as the hot redhead. They have an epic battle and in the end, they actually lose. The plate separation gets initiated and there's no way to stop it, which Tsong reveals over the screen at the pillar's console. They also find out about Aerith being captive that way. The trio barely manage to escape by ziplining from the sector across some kind of power line to barely escape certain demise. Chapter 13. A Broken World. After this tragedy, the trio regroups and tries to find Marlene, who Cloud suspects is at Aerith's home. After actually finding her there, the party find out more about Aerith's past and the fact that Aerith's mother is not actually her biological mother. They hear about the fact that Aerith is an ancient, which doesn't mean that she's old. She's part of the Ancients, also known as Cetra, an almost extinct race of people who used to be an ancient civilization. And not only is she part of the race, she is the last Cetra. She's like a unicorn, but prettier. Cloud, knowing about Shinra's science department, is quick to decide that he wants to go save her, but Aerith's mother and the others are unsure. For the night, they decide to look for survivors in the ruins of Sector 7. It's there where they actually find that Wedge has survived, and they manage to bring him back to Elmira's home. Elmira is Aerith's mother, by the way. Time to learn her name now, guys. Chapter 14. In Search of Hope. Chapter 14 starts with one of 3 resolution scenes based on what side quests you have done, but also who you picked up in the sewers. You remember that? Did you question why I mentioned such a random choice? Now you know. It's actually an important choice. especially if you are unhealthily obsessed with a fictional relationship. Seriously though, all the scenes are super beautiful, and while it's technically the bad scene you get for not doing side quests, the Barrett scene is actually hella nice. I will not speak on the others for fear of being emotionally abused by shippers. Okay, but seriously, all the scenes are super neat. Either way, after the resolution scene, Cloud, emotionally unavailable player Strife, and his companions decide that they want to go save Aerith. To find a way to the plate where they'll find Aerith, they inquire at Don Corneo's mansion, where they only find his right hand. Not the body part, like his right-hand man, Leslie, to help him out because he wants to take revenge on the Don, who is hiding in the sewers. And Leslie knows a way up the plate. Yet, they end up getting Leslie slapped by Corneo, who slips away like the slimy banana peel he is, while the party saves Leslie from Corneo's sewer pet. Before the party heads up to the plate in order to reach the Shinra building where they will find Aerith, like any good RPG main characters, they help out some more people and do some more side quests. Chapter 15, The Day Midgar Stood Still. Now heading up towards the Shinra building through the ruins of Sector 7. This chapter is honestly mostly combat, climbing, some banger music, and an incredible but horrifying view of the destroyed Sector 7 from above. Chapter 16, The Belly of the Beast. Cloud iconic title pose Strife, Tifa and Barrett reach the Shinra building. After posing for the cover art, Cloud heads to the building with the others. They enter through the garage, and despite engaging in open combat with the entire parking crew, they make it to the entrance hall without much trouble. After Tifa decides that Lara Croft isn't the only iconic female video game character who can climb and parkour like a badass, she manages to acquire a keycard which leaves the player with a choice. Take the elevator and comfortably get to the top with more risk of being caught, or take the emergency stairs. Frankly, I adore the stairs. It's just funny as heck. But the elevator has some really cool scenes too, with Tifa questioning the morality of a lot of their actions. Both is worth trying, to be honest. Anyways, at the top they take a tour through the Shinra Museum, because the interior decor has convinced them Shinra can't be that bad. Well, actually it's the only way to get further towards the science department, but the interior of the Shinra building is really fucking nice. For an evil company, they have some really good taste in decorations. After that, they go into a cinematic Shinra experience, which malfunctions and shows them the apocalypse. Why not, I suppose? At this point, it becomes clear that Sephiroth is somehow present in the Shinra building. Also, Cloud and the gang find an ally in the building who gets them to the higher floors. The mayor of the city is working with Avalanche because he holds a grudge against Shinra, due to his role as a mayor becoming unimportant due to Shinra's political power. On the way to the higher floors, Cloud meets some old buddies who quickly decide to go and get a Crisis Core reference, but Cloud doesn't wait for the reference to show up and they move on. Eventually, after spying on the directors of the company for intel, they manage to follow this creep scientist Hojo to the science department, where they finally reunite with Aerith. After Hojo is kidnapped by the Flying Laundry Mafia, the party meets a curious being, Red 13, a dog lion-like being that can also talk. After making friends with Red, Cloud has a vision and his headaches come back in full swing, after which Cloud, ibuprofen immune Strife, stumbles towards an elevator and eventually collapses. Chapter 17, Deliverance from Chaos. When Cloud wakes up, he and the others are in the room in which Aerith used to stay when she was little, and she and her biological mother were being held by Shinra. Here, there's some super interesting talk, and Aerith finally opens up to the others about being an ancient, and why Shinra wants her in captivity. They believe she can lead them to the Promised Land, because of a prophecy about it. Then, Red 13 reveals that the Flying Laundry are actually called Whispers, which is super relieving because I no longer need to think of laundry-related jokes. They are arbiters of fate. They enact the planet's will by seeking out those who seek to change fate and making sure it stays on course. In this scene, it's also heavily implied that Aerith knows even more than she's letting on. At least, she knew more. Right after the lore talk, they get contacted by the mayor over a TV screen in the room. And guess who's with him? It's good old Wedge. He organized a whole-ass attack on the Shinra HQ with other Avalanche cells. So, the party make their way to the roof to catch a helicopter. After being forced to take part in a dungeon by Hojo in return for some fun bosses and loot, the party heads towards the roof, which will lead them through the president's office. After following a trail of alien goo, they find themselves in the office where they find President Shinra hanging from the side of the building. Weird way to work out, but okay. After some talking and a standoff with the president gets stabbed by Sephiroth. Neat. But then Sephiroth isn't satisfied with an ordinary single murder stabbing, so he stabs Barret. Not neat. After a boss fight of tweaking about Barret's possible demise, we found out that he was actually saved by the Whispers. Looks like they had some leveled cure materia on hand. Cloud tries to go after Sephiroth, but he escapes with a part of Genova, which was what caused the trail of alien goo earlier. Now, while waiting for their chopper to pick them up, they watch their Uber get obliterated by a Shinra helicopter. In that chopper is none other than Rufus Shinra, the president's son. Now Cloud spars with the president's son to give the others enough time to escape. After a bit of fighting, and Tifa clutching up for Cloud to save him from getting yeeted off the Shinra building, the party ends up getting to the bottom of the building to escape. In possibly one of the most badass scenes in the game, Cloud grabs a motorcycle to clean house in the entrance hall, while Tifa decided to grab the least action chase proof car she could find to pick up Aerith, Barret and Red. Chapter 18 Destiny's Crossroads. What follows is an iconic highway motorcycle chase with tons of Shinra troops and even a big six-wheeled robot boss. And after that, Sephiroth has to go and ruin the fun by standing in the middle of the road. That's legit dangerous. This guy. Now the party stands at Destiny's Crossroads. Sheesh. Sephiroth invites them to change fate. After careful consideration, the party says fuck it we ball and decides to challenge fate together. They end up fighting some big whispers as well as a giant one in order to seemingly defeat Destiny. Eventually they actually succeed, but once again Sephiroth wants Cloud's attention. So right after killing a big ass whisper, Cloud faces Sephiroth, with his friends joining him phase after phase of the Sephiroth fight, which has a 100% guaranteed hell yeah rate for me. Cloud, bring it on bitch, Strife, tries to land the final strike on Sephiroth with the help of his friends in a sequence that is similar to one of the coolest scenes from Advent Children, the Final Fantasy VII movie, and which leads into one of the coolest scenes between Cloud and Sephiroth, with maybe my favorite track from Remake playing. But Cloud doesn't manage to defeat Sephiroth here. Some important details. After the fight, there's a bunch of scenes shown. For one, Zack, the guy from Crisis Core Fair, surviving a fight against a ton of troopers. But also, Biggs laying in bed at the Leaf House in Sector 6, but being alive. Next we see the party outside of Midgar, with Cloud deciding he has to go after Sephiroth to settle their score. The others decide to join him, and they set out to continue their unknown journey to save the planet. And then the credits roll. Thank you for watching. Now you are prepared for Rebirth. If you like Final Fantasy content, feel free to subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it. I'm Cloud Q, and I will see you next time.